Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Being lectured by Labor members on electoral propriety and fairness is a bit like taking lessons in personal security from Jack the Ripper. This is the party that brought us the Electoral Finance Act, supported by some of the other parties opposite, and they are yet to apologise to the electorate for doing so. But, Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to see this particular bill before the House tonight, because as my colleague, the member for Coromandel, not Coromandel East, and the current chairman of the Justice and Electoral Committee was kind enough to point out, I did actually chair the committee through the whole of last year when 90% of the work was done, ably supported by the then Deputy Chair, Dr Cam Calder, and both of us moved on to new roles at the start of this year, as a result of which our names don't even appear in the report. But I'd like to think that we could claim a little bit of credit for getting it to the point. And I want to acknowledge all members of the committee who worked on it last year. They attacked the task intelligently and with vigour, and I believe a good job was done. So I thank all members across the House for that. Mr. Speaker, some excellent recommendations have come forward in this bill and as a result of the work of the committee, and these should streamline election day procedures, promote awareness of the importance of civics amongst young people and voting, and it's particularly important that we encourage our young people to vote, because all the evidence shows us that if they develop a history as young people in voting, they'll continue with that throughout their lives. And it should also encourage a return to our historically high voter turnout. And we can commend ourselves in New Zealand for the fact that we achieved that without having compulsory voting, because we've just seen again in Australia that even though they have compulsory voting, they don't get anywhere near to achieving that particular outcome. But, Mr. Speaker, some opposition speakers tonight have criticised the recommendation to do away with streamers and rosettes, etc. But I just want to point out that election day must be absolutely fair, and the members opposite can trivialise the reason for it, but in fact it is very important that the day should be completely free of electioneering and political influence, and there's plenty of anecdotal evidence that it hasn't been, and I believe that this is a positive step to ensure that it's as fair and unintimidating as it can be. And, Mr. Speaker, the other point I want to make is to just highlight the absolute nonsense that we've heard from a number of speakers, including the Honourable Phil Goff, Chris Farfoy most recently, David Clendon, Andrew Little and unfortunately even Dennis O'Rourke, about the apparent consensus on issues that arose from the Electoral Commission's review of MMP. Because, Mr. Speaker, anybody listening to this debate has been subjected to complete nonsense on that issue, particularly the issue of coattailing. Mr. Speaker, as a result of the MMP review that was conducted, it was necessary for the government to work to see what sort of consensus there was amongst the parties on all of the issues that arose. And, Mr. Speaker, I've highlighted on this document just how different all the parties' positions were on a number of issues. Yes, there was consensus on a few things. All the parties agreed that list candidates should be able to stand in by-elections. All of them agreed that it should be possible to be both a list and an electorate candidate, and that the party list arrangements should essentially be as they are at the moment. But they weren't really the controversial issues. The things that were of particular heat out in the community included whether the party vote threshold should be lowered, whether the one-seat electorate threshold should be abolished, whether the overhang should be abolished. And, Mr. Speaker, if I hold this up, I've highlighted it in colour so that hopefully people can see on TV what the different colours are. Because when the Labor Party tell us that it's only the National Party that is out of step, in fact, looking at the recommendation to abolish the one electorate seat threshold, of the 8 parties in the House at the moment, Labor, the Greens and New Zealand First were in the minority. They were the ones that wanted to abolish the one-seat electoral threshold, whereas National, the Maori Party, the Mana Party, the ACT Party and the United Party all wanted to retain the status quo. So it is completely wrong for those speakers to suggest that they would have had consensus only if it wasn't for the nasty National Party. What really they mean is that consensus means see it and do it our way. Well, Mr. Speaker, that's not good enough, and that would not reflect the will of the people. On the issue of the overhang, the Labor Party and the Maori Party wanted to abolish the overhang. The New Zealand First Party had a slightly ambiguous position but wanted to look further into it. And the National Party, the Green Party, the Mana Party, the ACT Party and the United Party all had the same view. On the issue of lowering the party vote threshold, the National Party, the New Zealand First Party and the ACT Party went one way, Labour and the Greens went a second way, and the Maori Party, the Mana Party and the United Party went a third way. So it's worthwhile just clarifying the fact that there was no consensus. Without consensus, no change was possible. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll leave it at that. I do want to say again how delighted I am that this bill has come to the House. I thank all members of the committee for the work they have done to this point. I congratulate the Minister on the hard work, and what a scurrilous attack she received from her opposition spokesperson earlier. The hard work has been done by the Minister in a short time in bringing this bill to the House. That is a very good achievement, and I look forward to seeing it pass its way through so that we can have these changes in place ready for the next general election. Mr. Speaker, I raise a point of order.
A point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table the document that I have prepared, which highlights the differing parties' positions on the recommendations of the Electoral Commission.
Is there any objection? There is no objection. It can be tabled. I understand this is a order. I understand order. I understand the next call is a split call.